At 0720, the BACN relay plane went dark over enemy airspace. The signal loss was abrupt. The last burst of telemetry clipped mid-transmission. 2 minutes later, the airfield operations chief walked into the mission planning room with the paper still warm in his hand. By 0900, Eden was already climbing past the upper stack in an F-22 Raptor, her formation clean, her voice calm on the comms. She didn't speak unnecessarily. Vapor was on her right wing, Ghost on her left, both falling into their usual rhythm without having to be told. The three Raptors moved like linked nerves in a larger system, engines rising in sync as they cleared the coastal shelf. Behind them, the airbase dropped away into cloud-shadowed terrain, the tarmac already hazed with the day's first heat shimmer. Inside her cockpit, Eden's eyes tracked the flight data reflexively, her HUD lit in clean symbology, one number pulsing quietly in the top right corner. It was the time since loss of contact. 1 hour and 40 minutes. She hadn't reset the counter. The E-11A carried a relay package critical to the battle space. Without it, long-range comms fractured. Its crew was small, but the damage of losing them would spread far beyond personnel. The mission wasn't just about rescue. It was about re-establishing command in an active zone. The HH-60W was en route, escorted by 2 F-35s, but none of that mattered if enemy fighters were still in the sky. She checked her formation. Vapor's Raptor held steady, a half knot behind her left wing. He had a tendency to overcorrect when anxious, but today his flight line was razor tight. Ghost's tone was flatter than usual when he checked in, but she didn't ask. They all knew what today was. Eden reached down and clipped her gloves tighter to her belt, just below the edge of her harness. She never flew with them on until the second tone. Habit, not superstition. Her Raptor's panels were dust-free, instrumentation crisp, every check resolved without adjustment. That's how she kept it. No room for variables. Her squadron knew to match the standard without being reminded. The rescue birds had a 10-minute window in contested airspace, 10 minutes from ingress to exfil, assuming nothing interfered. The F-22s had cleared this corridor before, but this time, Eden knew the skies wouldn't be empty. The BACN hadn't drifted down from weather. Someone had eyes, and now those eyes knew the recovery would follow. She didn't talk about it during the pre-flight. The operations officer mentioned weather bands in the upper atmosphere and rising surface thermals over the valley. Eden had nodded, taken the information, and left. What mattered wasn't turbulence. It was response time. If they hit resistance too early, the rescue window collapsed. They leveled out at cruising altitude over the border. The terrain below folded into shallow valleys and dry plateaus, dust-coasted and riddled with hard points. Far off to the northeast, Eden spotted a thunderhead pulling static. She adjusted heading 2 degrees to give it room. No one commented. Her left hand rested against the throttle. Fingers splayed lightly. The Raptor thrummed around her, alive, but quiet. She tuned her awareness outward, mapping the sound of the engines against the horizon line, against her own breathing. Vapor's voice cut in over the private channel. Still no radar returns. You want us in combat spread or stay tight? She answered without hesitation. Hold formation. We're not showing presence yet. Let them blink first. He acknowledged with a double click. Ghost adjusted position slightly, just enough for her to catch the shift in peripheral vision. They were reading the same thing. Enemy eyes were out there, watching. The timer on her HUD blinked again. 1 hour and 43 minutes. No beacon, no emergency ping, just silence. Eden didn't waste time imagining what happened to the crew. Her job was to hold the corridor open, no matter what had already gone wrong. She ran the intercept sequence again in her head, checked her weapons loadout, confirmed each system without waiting for any alarms. The mission profile was simple: 3 Raptors to sweep and suppress, 2 F-35s to escort, 1 HH-60W to extract. The corridor was tight, the timing tighter. But this was the kind of sky Eden worked best in narrow margins, exact rolls, clean exits. Her entire flight plan was a compression of space and time. No room for improvisation, not unless someone else broke pattern first. The sun broke clear over the horizon ahead, washing the canopies in pale fire. For a moment, the squadron cast a perfect V-shadow across the low cloud layer beneath them. Eden glanced out to see Vapor's silhouette just below her wing. The three of them held steady, jets gleaming against the light. Then the radar pinged. One return, then two, then more. She didn't speak, just watched as the HUD began to bloom with red echoes. The signatures were faint but moving fast, not local patrols, not strays. These were directed intercepts. Eden tightened her grip on the throttle. The sky had just changed. "Call signs," she said quietly, her tone flat. "You are cleared for contact." No one hesitated. They slid into combat formation with practiced grace. Eden didn't look back. The corridor wasn't clear yet, but it would be. The countdown still ran in the corner of her display. 1 hour and 45 minutes. That was how long the relay had been gone. And now, the rescue was already on its way. The first radar return hit at 100.0 nautical miles. Shallow vector, moving fast. 2 seconds later, a second ping followed. Closer and closing. Eden watched the display multiply. The spacing between signals told her what the signals themselves did not. These weren't random patrols. They were stacked, intentional, coordinated. Bandits. Multiple groups, Eden said. Voice even. Formation hold. No chatter unless locked or defensive. Ghost confirmed first. Vapor was 2 beats behind him. The silence between those 2 acknowledgments told her they were feeling the pressure. She didn't blame them. The corridor was supposed to be thinly contested. This many signatures meant enemy fighters had prepped for intercept. The Raptors kept high to preserve energy advantage. Altitude gave options. Eden led them through a lateral roll, adjusting bearing 6 degrees east, giving them room to bleed speed later if needed. Below them, the terrain broke into jagged ridges. A low-lying riverbed carved through it like a scar, barely visible under the haze. A third return popped up inside the outer range ring. Eden marked it. The vector was wrong. The fighter wasn't coming for them. It was sweeping west, cutting a lane across the HH-60W's projected path. She didn't say anything yet. The moment wasn't right. Ghost broke comms first. 2 contacts converging on intercept profile. "I'm taking the left." Eden's tone didn't shift. "You are cleared hot. Vapor. Trail him 1 click behind. Stay vertical." Ghost dipped, nose down. Engine note rising as he bled altitude and locked target. Vapor peeled off a breath later, dropping behind him to cover his 6. Their contrails curled sharply in the sun. Eden held position. A few seconds passed, then Ghost came back up. Fox 3. The missile launched without flare. Eden tracked its burn trail tight, clean, unwavering. It struck a second later. Target vanished off radar. First kill confirmed. She allowed herself 1 short breath, then the board lit up again. 5 new returns, all rising from beneath the terrain. Low-angle launches from hidden ridgelines. That wasn't luck. That was bait. "Vapor. Break high right," Eden said. "Ghost. Reset altitude. Return to stack." Ghost responded quickly. Vapor didn't. "Vapor. Break high right. Now." Missile in the air flaring. Eden's eyes jumped to his signature. 1 red spike raced toward him on a low arc. She keyed a command and rolled hard, slotting herself under his jet. Flares deployed automatically, streaking white against the sky. She dove past him, cutting the missile's lock window, and dragged it behind her, long enough for Vapor to pull into the sun. It missed both of them. She climbed again and reset altitude. The Raptors stacked tight, silent. Vapor's voice came back on the channel. Lower now. "Thanks." She didn't acknowledge. "Bandits are not reactive," Ghost said. "They're waiting on rhythm." Eden's HUD showed the spacing. Too perfect. The enemies weren't chasing. They were shaping. A long arc meant to pull them east, away from the corridor's far boundary. If Eden followed the pattern, they'd end up too far from the HH-60W's ingress lane. If she held back, they'd lose targeting options and the rescue team would fly in blind. She switched to the broader net and keyed in the escort unit. Raptor lead to Echo Flight. You are advised to hold corridor altitude and maintain transponder silence. Do not push forward. The reply was professional. Echo Flight copies. Holding grid. She didn't say more. They'd either follow, or they wouldn't. Right now, her concern was the sky in front of her. She had 4 active bandits shaping her flank and at least 3 more uncommitted signatures loitering near the valley edge. Ghost spoke quietly over the internal channel. They're running a net. Same architecture we used on the northern grid last month. This is designed to pull a response group out of bounds. Eden already knew, but hearing it confirmed settled her timing. Break left. Ghost. Vapor holds center. I'm going to draw the spread. Vapor spoke up, unsettled. If you separate, they'll collapse on you. They're not collapsing yet, Eden said. They're positioning, which means they need me to keep moving. Let's find out how much. She throttled up. Her Raptor surged forward, peeling off the formation in a high G-bank. Within 5 seconds, 4 bandits adjusted course. 2 started a loose trail pattern. 1 dipped low, trying to reframe the radar cone. The last pulled high and tried to flank. Eden didn't lock anyone yet. She just ran quiet. No targeting tones, no comms. Let them think they had her in the net. Behind her, Ghost and Vapor circled back toward the corridor, compressing their vector into a rear wedge. The HH-60W was still inbound, its window only minutes out. If this ambush snapped shut at the wrong time, they wouldn't be able to cut a clean lane for the birds to extract. She watched the flanking signature pull wider. It was testing her edge speed. That meant the others were waiting. Traps forming, Eden muttered. They're holding the hammer back. She yanked the throttle and pulled vertical, then nosed down into a spiral that made her left shoulder compress into the harness padding. 1 of the enemies followed. 2 did not. They wanted her to feel chased. They didn't want her destroyed. Not yet. The flanking fighter climbed higher again, pacing her ascent. She kept going. At 85% fuel and 1 flare expended, Eden adjusted her horizon line and stabilized. The other Raptors were just now returning to formation near the recovery corridor. The F-35s were holding, but the airspace wasn't clean. Not yet. Below her, the enemy jets weren't pressing. They weren't diving. They were waiting. The airspace had gone too quiet, and Eden knew why. Radar returns came in slow but deliberate, not scattered. The enemy wasn't improvising anymore. They were shaping the fight, letting her formation move just far enough to stretch. Every maneuver was being read. Each change in position was met with patient counters that didn't close distance, only redirected it. The trap wasn't sprung yet, but the structure was clear. If they kept going, the Raptors would be too far from the recovery corridor to support extraction. That was the point. Ghost's voice came in low. New signature. High altitude. Ghosting just outside the range envelope. Stealth paint or partial mask. Eden adjusted her HUD filter, watching the soft return edge in from the upper band. The altitude was wrong for standard interceptors, and the timing wasn't coincidental. A 5th flanker, farther out, holding altitude with intent. It wasn't coming for them. It was watching. Hold vector. Let it commit first, she said. But Ghost's tone shifted, and Eden already heard the decision forming before he said it. I've got a hard lock. 274, 503 knots. He's masking. But he slipped. Eden tightened her jaw and banked left, eyes scanning both radar and sky. Do not break. That's an order. But Ghost had already moved. His signal dropped 2 degrees off center and angled down. His Raptor peeled into a steep dive, chasing the stealth contact. Vapor shifted to follow him, trailing high to cover. Eden throttled forward to counter, but she was 2 seconds too late. The faint return on radar vanished instantly. 2 red pings appeared in its place. Ghost's tone went sharp. They were waiting. I'm hit. Ejecting. His signal flared, then the line went dead. Through her canopy, Eden spotted the upward burst of an ejection seat far below, just a flash against the pale sky. followed by a small bloom of parachute fabric unfolding against the wind. A moment later, a dark line spiraled toward the ground, his crippled jet trailing smoke as it disintegrated into a ridge far below the fight. Vapor's voice cracked on the comms, not yelling, but close. "Ghost is down. I'm turning to support." "No," Eden said flatly. "Get clear. Return to corridor grid. Now." She rolled into a hard angle and pushed the throttle to max, cutting across the sky to intercept the cluster before they could regroup. 4 bandits responded in kind. 1 swung high to track her, 2 followed her direct path, and the 4th shifted wide to bracket. They weren't aiming to destroy. They were shaping the kill box, a control net, and she was inside it. She saw the logic behind it, and that was the worst part. It was clean, efficient, calculated the same way she might have done it, but now the trap was hers to absorb. "Vapor," she said, watching the spread tighten. "Cut left and full turn. Rejoin main airspace. I'll pull the line." There was a pause, then his voice came through, strained. "They'll collapse on you." "That's what I want." Eden didn't wait for acknowledgement. She pitched into a tight descending turn and broke hard away from formation, punching below the radar shelf and drawing the bandits with her. 3 followed immediately. The high-altitude contact mirrored her dive from above, matching her angle, but not closing. 1 stayed back, the final piece of the trap, holding the perimeter. She didn't care. As long as they chased her. They weren't circling the corridor. She hit terrain masking speed, her Raptor knifing through canyon edges and broken ridgelines like a heat-seeking shadow. Her countermeasure indicator flashed red, just 2 flares remaining. Fuel down to 65%. Not ideal. Still workable. She eyed the lead bandit closing on her 6 and leveled out just above the floor of a dry ravine. A few more seconds, and he'd overtake. She baited the lock. At the last possible moment, she pulled vertical and pitched the Raptor into a stall maneuver that left her weightless and drifting, nose up. The trailing jet overshot. She rolled, dropped speed, and locked tone. Fox 3. The missile struck before he could recover. 1 contact erased. The other 2 surged to adjust, but now Eden had options again. She dove low to shake position, cutting through narrow terrain to force them to follow her angles. Above, the ace kept distance. Her HUD flashed again. Fuel down. Countermeasures at 1. Signal range nearing threshold. She throttled back and slowed enough to let the jets behind her tighten. Let them think she was burning out. Let them draw closer. Every second she dragged them deeper into her vector was another second the HH-60W moved toward extraction. She flipped to the squadron net, now reduced. Vapor. Status. Back on grid, F-35's holding. Good. Keep them locked in. Corridor must stay clean. She switched back to internal. "No graves today," she said quietly to herself. Ahead. The canyon twisted left and dropped. Behind her, 2 fighters bore down. 1 started to bracket again, but she didn't climb. She stayed low, silent, unreadable. This wasn't survival. It was subtraction. Let them come. The air narrowed around Eden's canopy. Heat shimmer blurred the horizon. The terrain below was tight and irregular, folding into broken ridgelines and windswept canyons. Her Raptor clung to the edge of stall speed as she threaded the space between rock walls and heat columns, flying by instinct now, not telemetry. The HUD was a distraction, flashing red warnings across fuel, altitude, and range. She let them blink. Her job wasn't to make it back. It was to hold the sky just long enough. She had pulled 5 fighters off the corridor. 2 were gone, burned off or outflanked in the last series of turns. 3 remained. The one directly behind her had started playing games, pacing at a matched angle just outside guns range, drifting closer like a shark before contact. Another tracked her from altitude, shifting slowly between vertical cuts, waiting for her to rise. The 3rd moved wide, maybe coordinating, maybe just waiting for her to run out of options. The last flare was still in its housing. Fuel hovered just above critical. Her comms bar flickered. Signal degradation was worsening this deep in the terrain. Still, a line came through choppy but clear enough. Rescue team secured. LZ stable. Extraction in progress. Eden didn't answer. The message wasn't for her. It was for the fight she had bought time for. That part was working. She flew lower. The jet off her left wing eased closer again, visible now through the curved glass. It didn't attack. Its nose didn't rise for a lock. It simply flew in step, banking when she banked, trailing her line like a shadow. Intimidation. Maybe. Or taunt. She held her course. A minute passed. The bandit inched nearer. She rolled. The Raptor inverted cleanly and dropped altitude with sudden aggression, plunging through a rising heat column that distorted the sky like water. The pressure change jarred her spine against the seat as she leveled out 20 feet above the canyon floor. The enemy jet didn't follow. He banked away at the last second, pulled out high, and vanished from her scope. One threat removed. She didn't exhale. The remaining two tightened behind her. One rose again to bait her upward. The other began pulsing short radar pings, trying to make her flinch into a climb. She ignored them. The altimeter dipped another meter. Canyon walls crowded in. Sweat fogged the lower edge of her visor. She resisted the urge to wipe it clear. Her hands didn't move. Her breath stayed shallow. Her HUD flashed fuel critical. She adjusted throttle delicately, balancing burn rate against lift. Every correction had to count. There was no space left for recovery curves if she misjudged a bend. Wind patterns shifted, pressing sideways against her tailfin. She eased into the lean, silent. Her comms crackled. Not a full message, just an automated ping. The HH-60W was clear of the threat zone. Eden's job was technically done. But she wasn't going to outclimb the enemy now. If she tried, the ace above would cut her clean before she even hit the stratosphere. Her only protection was the canyon itself. She banked left and entered a narrower stretch, rocks rising on either side like broken teeth. The temperature surged. Wind dragged across the fuselage in uneven pulls. Below her, the terrain dropped into a winding gorge she couldn't see the bottom of. No time to adjust if she missed the apex. She didn't miss. The lower jet held pursuit. The high one vanished off her screen masking, possibly disengaging. She began to feel the stall coming before the indicator lit. The air pressure didn't change, but the nose felt softer. The response muted. She rolled into a shallow climb to regain airspeed and shook the jet free of the edges. The moment passed. The jet behind her misread, the shift and overshot, pulling into a climb as if expecting her to break altitude. She didn't. He exposed his flank. No missile left, no advantage in chasing him. She let him go. Only one signature remained. The final fighter took a wide loop, trying to encircle and trap her against terrain. She stayed silent, easing into lower terrain, still untouched by the previous dogfights. The light here was dimmer, canyon walls higher. She let her breathing slow against Kram. Her heart rate was high, but not spiking. That was important. A fast heart made fast hands. Fast hands made mistakes. HUD power dimmed. Systems entered conservation mode. She didn't adjust course. She kept the jet moving forward, pressing against air that grew thinner and hotter with each mile. This wasn't winning. It wasn't clean or elegant. It was patience, endurance, the discipline to keep the machine steady long enough for the others to escape, for the sky to quiet. Eden leaned her head back just enough to feel the weight of the helmet shift. The Raptor hummed in response to her light hand on the controls. One more turn, one more ridge, she would fly through it. And if they followed, she would still be ahead. Eden angled her Raptor into a shallow climb, adjusting pitch by fractions as the sky lightened ahead. The sun was just clearing the higher ridges, its glare cutting through the haze and washing the upper cloud shelf in gold. She climbed straight into it, letting the canopy catch the light. Her HUD flickered as the sensors fought for contrast. That was the point. Let the glare do part of the work. let the ace above lose her outline in the radiance. Her engine temperature ticked higher. Fuel dipped under minimum threshold. One flare left. She felt the gloves pull against her grip as she adjusted throttle and ran her breathing through counts. The radar ping returned faint and high. The ace was dropping into angle again, trailing slightly left, trying for a soft lock, expecting Eden to brake too soon. She didn't. Instead, she increased the climb and let her airspeed bleed until the flight path almost flattened. The sun was behind her now. The climb lost all sound except for the constant whine of strain from the airframe. The Raptor was almost hanging, a half-ton of aircraft holding at the line where flight became weight. Then, she moved. Eden kicked the rudder hard and rolled inverted into a stalled drift. Her jet dropped nose first in a spin, flipping orientation but keeping the enemy in her upward sightline. As she fell, she saw him bite the angle. The ace committed too early, too steep. That's when she fired the flare. The bright white burst cut straight through the sunlight, a false heat bloom that trailed from her tail as the Raptor spun past its previous course. The enemy mistook it for a decoy covering a missile release. He broke formation instinctively, adjusted to intercept a shot that never came, and dropped directly into her flight cone. Her voice was steady. Fox 3. The missile fired clean from the right wing and arced upward. The ace tried to roll, but too late. The hit was direct. The radar return blinked out. Through the haze, she caught the black plume curling down in pieces. No shoot. Two left. She recovered her dive just above the canyon rim and dipped under the lower threshold to shake her profile off radar. The Raptor protested. The controls had gone soft. Her left rudder was lagging. Hydraulic strain was increasing. She didn't look at the system alerts. She adjusted, by feel. One of the remaining fighters dropped fast to match altitude. The other circled wide but stayed visible on the edge of her scope. Eden kept quiet. No comms, no warnings. Just her breath, counted and shallow. The low pursuer tried a hard roll to close distance. He flew it tight, but didn't account for the wind shear that pulled across the canyon bend. She banked right and climbed briefly, using the rock face to shield her signature, then dropped again into a slipstream of rising thermal. The pursuing jet tried to match her line. Eden saw him make the correction. Late. His airspeed wasn't calibrated for the vertical draft. As he climbed, he lost angle control, tilted flat, and scraped into stall. His attempt to recover took him directly into a rock shelf. She didn't watch him impact. She just noted the radar blink off. One left. The final contact hovered just outside the range ring, high and slow, waiting, watching. He had seen enough. His jet didn't break in. It turned. Eden held her course. She didn't chase. The radio crackled. A clean voice cut through. "Extraction complete? Package secure? We're out, thanks to you." She didn't respond. Her canopy was streaked with heat residue. Her glove creaked where her grip hadn't loosened since the stall. The Raptor was hot, trembling slightly from engine wear. The airframe had started a soft vibration, not enough to fail, but enough to remind her how much she had burned to get to this point. She stayed low, hugging the terrain until the ridgelines widened. When the last radar contact faded completely, she eased the throttle back and climbed just enough to rejoin safe altitude. She didn't climb higher than needed. Her systems were bleeding power. Comms relay was holding barely. She adjusted her course toward the extraction grid but stayed well behind the others. The recovery team didn't need her anymore. Her job had been in the space before the call came through, in the moments when no one else could see who was flying cover. Ahead, the sky cleared. Vapor had checked in. The F-35s were accounted for. The HH-60W was en route home. Stable. Intact. She was the last one still in the air. Eden shifted her grip and let out a breath. The mission hadn't been clean, but the corridor had held. The enemy trap had failed. She throttled down to conserve what little fuel remained and let the jet ride quiet along the edge of a dying sky. The first aircraft back was one of the F-35s. Its wheels hit the runway just before sunset, followed closely by the second. Both taxied silently past the tower, exhaust haze trailing behind them in long ripples. The HH-60W came in low a few minutes later, rotor still hot from the valley air, its landing steady, controlled. Medical crew already moving before the frame fully touched asphalt. The rescued team exited quickly, stiff but whole. No one clapped. That wasn't the kind of landing this was. Vapor's Raptor followed in close formation with the other surviving jet. Their approach was straight. No drag chutes, no wasted motion. The tower acknowledged their return, and both jets rolled to a stop near the end of the airstrip. Vapor shut down second, his canopy lifting slow, the last light of the day brushing across the side of his helmet as he sat for a moment, staring toward the horizon. The flight line remained quiet. There was no sign of Eden. She hadn't checked in since clearing the corridor. Her last transmission had been a low-band whisper confirming the F-35s were still airborne. After that, nothing. The tower called twice, once on main frequency, once on emergency backup. No answer. One of the ground crew looked skyward, shielding his eyes even though the sun had already dipped below the ridgeline. Vapor climbed down from his aircraft and removed his helmet, but he didn't leave the flight line. He stood beside his jet, looking west, where the sky was going from amber to ash. Then the controller's voice came through, low and measured. Contact. Single frame. 2 miles out. No beacon. Low altitude. Vapor didn't move, but his voice was clear. I told you she'd still be flying. Across the valley rim, a shape emerged against the darkening clouds. The silhouette was unmistakable. A single Raptor, nose low, trailing smoke from the right engine cowling. Undercarriage extended early. Flight path long and shallow. No flare, no call sign. The jet descended in silence, its right stabilizer twitching once as it leveled out for final approach. A portion of the tail fin was scorched. Paneling along the left fuselage showed heat scoring. There were no visible weapons left beneath the wings. The landing was dead stick. Eden's Raptor touched down at high speed, skipped once, then settled hard onto the main gear. The tires locked briefly, barked across the tarmac, and held. She rode the entire length of the runway before easing the airframe to a stop near the far-end lights. Steam rose from the engine, cowling as the system cooled. The canopy remained sealed for several seconds. Then it opened. Eden stood slowly inside the cockpit. She didn't remove her helmet until the wind hit her face. Her braid stuck slightly to the back of her neck. Sweat darkened the collar of her flight suit. She unhooked her harness with one hand, gloves still clipped to her belt. She climbed down without assistance. No one spoke as she walked the tarmac. Her boots left faint prints in the heat-softened dust layered over the asphalt. The light had gone full gray by the time she passed the hangar threshold. A few crew members nodded as she passed. No salutes, no questions. There would be a debrief. There would be reports, breakdowns, and replays. But none of that started here. Not yet. The only sound was the ticking of her Raptor's frame cooling behind her. The jet stood alone at the edge of the runway, paint darkened from heat, surfaces visibly scored. No one touched it. Not yet. Ghost's signal had been recovered. CSR confirmed his location and medical status. He was stable. That was all Eden had needed to hear. She walked past the row of operations vehicles and toward the far corner of the flight line where the shadow of the control tower fell long across the ground. The sky above was pale violet, a last trace of altitude light still visible across the peaks. Her shoulders didn't drop. Her steps didn't waver. There were no medals waiting, no press, no words carved into walls. Just the knowledge that every aircraft on that roster except hers had come home untouched, and every name on the mission list had made it back alive. That was enough. She didn't look back at her jet. She didn't need to.